Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show with your hosts, Andrew Biggs and Mike Abramowitz. The Better Than Rich Show helps ambitious leaders who are on a mission to leave the world better than they found it, change their perspective on what's important, increase their income and impact, and systemize their life and business. If you've ever struggled with finding your purpose, have felt disconnected or distracted, or found yourself going through the motions, this show will remind you that what you do matters and will re-inspire you to chase your highest dreams. It's time for you to become better than rich.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host, Andrew Biggs, and I'm back here with my co-host, Mike Abramowitz. Mike, how you doing this morning?
Good morning. Feeling good. Great Monday morning.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yes. And yes, if you're with us live, go ahead and shout us out in the chat. Let us know what you're up to this morning and what brought you here, as well as like and comment and obviously share. That's the easiest way that you can support the show, is just sharing our content and making it aware to everyone else who's out there that we exist and that Better Than Rich is changing your life in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, we are here. We're episode 2, by the way, just, elephant in the room. I am in Dallas right now. I'm on a little business trip here. So different background, and hopefully everything though is still working here and we're good to go. But
good. Look good and sound good as always.
All right. Beautiful. Well, hey, man. We got into some awesome topics. Now we're going to kind of do round 2 here on what you've learned from investing in yourself, what I've learned from investing in myself, and we're going to start to unpack that further. I thought some really good topics came up yesterday. If you haven't watched yesterday's show, make sure you do go back and watch it. But, I'd really love to just start diving right in, man. One of the things we were talking about before the show was how to stay informed without going crazy. And I think that these days, that's more important than ever, right? The news cycle moves very fast. A lot of times it actually really is affecting our lives, whether it's COVID or lockdowns or, different things that's happening with politics or health. And so, I thought, it'd be fun for us to unpack a little bit about how you do that. I can unpack a little bit about how I do that, or at least attempt to do that, and we'll see where it takes us. But yeah, man, talk to me a little bit about that from your perspective, staying informed without going crazy.
Yeah.
How does one do that?
Well, I think it comes back to yesterday talking about curiosity. I know when I'm watching and learning and listening to things, and I see these political posts, or I see these posts about COVID, or I see things, and I just decipher from, okay, what is really trying to get accomplished right here? Because I was something not many people know about me is I was actually on the front page of a newspaper article back when I was in high school, and it wasn't a positive thing.
Tell me more. This is intriguing. I'm learning here. Tell me more.
So it was in the Asbury Park Press, and the Cliff Notes version of the story was my buddies and I. We went to a friend's, had access to like a catamaran club, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to go to this catamaran. It's my parents or whatever it was. We're going to get this party going." And we're like, yeah, cool. It's in April. We got nothing else to do. It's a school night. Let's go hang out there and just go chill, whatever. So I was 16. All of us were 16. And while we're there, the cops came and busted up the party. Okay. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do anything. I was, completely straight edge at that point in my life. And so I just fled. I just ran. I was like, I don't want to be guilty by association here. So I went and played manhunt with the cops, and I just laid in a marsh for till about 3 a.m. And the NYPD helicopters who found me. So NYPD helicopter found me. Yeah, the radar, everything. So the whole thing went down. Well, the press, the Asbury Park Press, picked up the story, and the front page of the newspaper, I have the article still. I saved it, and it says, "Injured boy saved in drug party raid." That was the headline, front page. Our headline was "Deadliest Day Ever in the War." It was like our headline was more significant than this other headline that was in the war. And the article was just so overdone, hyped it up, wasn't factual, wasn't real. So ever since that moment when I was 16, I'm like, it created a question of like what actually is real versus what is being portrayed to the public. Mm-hmm. And since then, my relationship with the media is a little bit more of a curiosity than a let me take this for what is truth. Mm-hmm. So with everything that's happening right now, even when originally when COVID happened, you and I had many conversations of how do we discern? How do we take what's given unto us? How do we figure out what is real versus what is feel? What is actual versus what is panic? What is relevant to me? What is relevant to my people? How do I respond? And it was just a lot of question asking. So that's how I approach it. And I seek counsel. I seek wisdom. Everyone has an opinion. I don't go to people's opinions. I seek counsel and wisdom. I went to you. I went to other mentors. I didn't go to people who were very dramatized by everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do. That's my relationship with the media. That's how I. What are some things that show up for you? I'm curious.
Well, I think we can unpack this quite a bit. But I want to ask one quick question and a follow up. How do you know if something is counsel versus opinion? How do you determine what is wisdom versus good advice? How do you determine what is counsel versus opinion? If you seek counsel, and someone's giving you their opinion or their counsel, how do you know the difference? What do you think?
The way I know the difference is the judge of it's my judgment. I mean, I have a circle of influence, like a sphere of influence of people that I have in my tribe that I've established some sort of trust with. I also have people that are not in my tribe, like a Tony Robbins, that is someone that he lives a principle-based life that aligns with my principles. So I need to make sure that who I'm getting that wisdom from has some sort of alignment to my view of the world. So that way I could align with their view of the world. And I try to make it as principle-based as possible where it's not, it doesn't change with environment. It doesn't change with, who they're with. Like it's very much like Stephen Covey says, like it's the, I don't know how his paradigm that he talks about, having a paradigm of principle-centered living versus relationship-centered or business-centered or money-centered. He says principle-centered that does not change regardless. So having those people in my life that I can say they are principle-centered, so therefore I can respect their lens of the world because I know they have more counsel or wisdom and their opinion matters to me. I don't know if that necessarily answers. That's how I kind of sift through some of the noise.
Right. So it's not constantly changing with the wind. It's not changing with what's popular today or unpopular today. It's saying this is who I am. This is how I live. And, take it or leave it. Sometimes it works for me. Sometimes it doesn't. But this is who I am. And this is how I'm going to respond in different situations. I love that. So seek counsel of people who are principled in their approach. And they aren't so volatile with how they change, with how the news cycle happens or what's happening in their personal life or whatever. They're not swayed with the wind so easily. One other thing I would say with seeking counsel, since we're on this topic and on this thread, is look for somebody who's going to ask you questions. Look for somebody who's not just going to give you opinion, but is maybe going to give you a particular way to potentially think about it, but then say, well, what do you think? Let's figure this out together and let's have a conversation about it. I think that the people that I want to seek counsel from are people who are actively not so certain about their perspectives all the time, and they're always seeking new information. They're always seeking to actually want to be informed even better, and they aren't married to their positions about any one thing because we're always working with an incomplete model and view of the world anyway. We have incomplete information, so we have to make the best choices with the information we have. But somebody who's really principled when new information comes, they change their perspective, right? And so that's really important when we're seeking counsel. I think that's really cool. I want to go back to that story.
I love what you just said. I just want to make sure that was captured, because when you say someone who's willing to ask questions, that triggered with me, because that is what some of these individuals have done. They would offer a little bit of their opinion, but they would definitely question or ask good questions, thought-provoking questions to help me forge my own opinion. Which you've just done excellent work with me on during the last several years. So I'm glad you said that. I want to make sure everyone caught that. Is it's true that anyone who I just looking back on certain chapters in my life where I needed counsel, and I got thought-provoking questions that were posed to me. Even when I listen to some of some influencers. Many of them, when I listen to them, they're asking their guests really good questions versus telling them, this is what I think. What do you think? It's like, tell me, like, this is kind of what I think, but I want to hear from you first. What are your thoughts? And it's like, well, these are my thoughts about your thoughts. What do you think about my thoughts? So it's like very much a conversation with leading with questions. So I just want to make sure that was captured. But that was good.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to this story. I love learning new things about you, Mike, and I love this story. Injured boy, rescued by police in a drug raid or something along those lines, to paraphrase. And yes, it does make us question, okay, how do we actually want to stay informed? What's the best way to stay informed? And how can we stay vigilant? Obviously, if we take kind of an extreme perspective that everything that we see in the news or read in articles is the absolute truth, then that's probably a wrong way to live. Also, if we take an extreme perspective that no one's to be trusted, there's no truth out there, that I can't trust anybody, and all of a sudden we're going down conspiracy theory alley, that's probably not a great way to live either. Part about being better than rich is trying to have our map of the world map reality. Okay, this is the foundational principle for being fulfilled. If we want to be fulfilled, we want to have a really good map of reality and then map it onto the actual world in which we live in 3 dimensions. And what typically happens when we're experiencing fulfillment is we don't have a great map of reality. We think that if you go to college and you work hard and you stay in school and you graduate, that life's going to be easy and you're going to be able to travel the world and make millions of dollars. And so that's your map of reality. And then you get hit alongside the head when the real world comes knocking at your door. So there's an example of where your map internally doesn't map this 3-dimensional world that we live in. What we need to do is try to shape our reality, shape our model of the world, how we think about the world, to map onto reality. And so the foundational quest that we're all on here, at least in the Better Than Rich community, is the quest for truth. We want the truth. And sometimes the truth is really hard to come by these days. And so we need to be ever more vigilant and aware of how we're actually parsing that out and how we're figuring out what the truth is. Somebody was doing a little test, and it was a professor. He was talking to his class. He said, hey, how many of you guys would want to know if your significant other was cheating on you? And every single hand in the class was raised. Now, why would that be? Because, certain perspectives of human nature would say, well, all we want to do is take the path of least resistance. We don't want to experience any sort of pain. We don't want to experience any sort of discomfort. We're strictly driven by these evolutionary forces that would say, hey, if you have to experience discomfort, avoid it, right? But why would people want to know if their significant other is cheating on them? Because the quest to actually know, the quest to understand the world and have the truth is actually better and a higher value for human beings than it is for the desire to not be inconvenienced, to the desire to not experience pain. And so people would rather experience pain than to live in a fantasy world. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that really highlights, why it's so important to try to seek the truth. So one of the things that I wrote down that Mike was talking about was curiosity, right? So approaching what's happening in the world with a curious eye. And also, this really requires you to stay sovereign and to not get sucked into whatever it is that you're engaging with. Because no matter where you're getting your news from, we have to understand that it is biased. There is some sort of biased tilt or biased perspective, even if that bias is simply a market force that is trying to get you to click on something, or it's a biased force that's simply trying to sell more, newspapers in Mike's case. So, there's all sorts of dynamics and incentives that are happening. And so if you're not able to stay sovereign and say, okay, let me try to understand what those different incentives might be and where their bias might be, you're not going to be able to parse out the information very well. And therefore, you're going to have a map of the world that's really not all that sophisticated. So, I'm going on my little rant here, Mike, but, what's landing or resonating with you? I see you nodding over there. So fill me in.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's, there's two words that show up for me is interesting and fascinating.
Okay, cool.
Those are the two words that show up. And, I heard Tony say that he's like, anytime something happens in his life that is like odd or different, or, even if it's frustrating at times, he's just like, wow, this is fascinating. It's like, that's his word of choice. It's like, this is fascinating versus this is frustrating. And also I use the word quite often that as you were talking, I use the word, this is very interesting. That's interesting. Wow, that's interesting versus like, I am so pissed at this shit happening right now. It's just like, wow, this is really interesting. And one of the things that showed up as you were talking is, I was at the barbershop, getting this awesome haircut, and they had a show on in the barbershop, and I never heard of the show before. And it was like these superheroes that were kind of good, but kind of bad. Like I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I was like immersed into the show because there's nothing else to do while I'm getting my haircut except watch the TV. So I'm watching this show and I had no idea what the show is. And I want to ask the barber, like, hey, what is this awesome show that's on? So I went to my phone and I Googled because the subtitles were on and some of the names were like Money Milker or something like that and Homelander. Like I had no idea what they were. So I just went and typed in them in my phone and I found that the show was called The Boys. And then when I was in Austin, Texas recently, a lot of individuals were gathered around the TV watching this show. And I was like, this show again? Like, what is this? And they're all like immersed and zoned into the TV watching this as well. So I, of course, joined. And it's very entertaining. So I just went on a binge of watching the first 4 episodes just to kind of see what all the hype is. And I'll tell you right now, if you haven't watched The Boys, it's actually really good. And why it aligned with what we're talking about right now is because the show is very, very, it correlates very much to what's happening in our society right now because the superheroes of the show are like the famous actors and actresses. There's like A-list superheroes, then there's like B and C and D-list superheroes. And the public space makes these heroes and puts them on this pedestal like they are, they're like human gods, just like we do for the Lady Gaga of the world and all these celebrity figures and
Sure.
actors and actresses and musicians. And we put them on this pedestal and we wait in line and get their autographs and we believe what they say at the surface level. They go to the Grammys or they give their speech on their lens of the world. And it's like, oh my gosh, everyone's listening. It's like, this is the truth because this is that person's opinion. But what the show is really showing is that even these superheroes are working for, the shirts and ties, the suits that they're working for behind the scenes with this agenda that they're pushing. And the superheroes aren't really necessarily saying what they want to say. They're saying what the agenda wants to press forward. And they will manipulate and do whatever they need to do to make sure that their agenda continues to push forward in this show called The Boys. And some of these characters are really bad. Some of these characters are really good. But it's so interesting, using that word again, it's interesting how it seems as if it could be correlated to what might be happening in our society. And what happens is by Hollywood using a show like The Boys, it almost like desensitizes us a little bit to like, could this really be happening? Like, I don't know. I think that's really Lady Gaga's opinion. That's not someone else's agenda coming through her now, but it's kind of interesting if that's the case, you know? So that's what kind of shows up where, again, I'm not saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I am curious as to, are there certain things that might be happening and are certain agendas being pushed from people talking about certain things? It's interesting.
Fascinating, even. Yeah, I'll have to check this out, man. I hadn't heard of The Boys. I'm excited to check it out. One of the things that I'll just kind of share with you.
By the way, if you've watched The Boys and you're listening right now, hit us up in the comments, all right? Because totally. I know there's people who've seen this. All right, awesome. Go ahead.
So basically, this brings us to an important concept, which is kind of like responsible conspiracy theorizing. And, we really need to understand that, there's a saying that don't ascribe to malice that which can easily be ascribed to stupidity. And I think a lot of people just simply get hijacked by agendas unknowingly, unwittingly, right? So they think that they are standing up for a good. They think that they are standing up for a cause. They think that they are ultimately, living out their belief system. They're out there professing true statements, at least as according to their own perspectives, right? And so there's a difference between something that is someone who's being truthful to themselves and true information, right? So let's just start with that distinction. By the way, Daniel Schmachtenberger, if you guys ever have heard of him, you should check him out, has done extensive research on this. He's probably one of my favorite thinkers on this topic. Would love to get him on the show. If anyone knows Daniel, he is just, world class at understanding what's happening in the world right now. But he talks about how there's difference between someone being truthful and someone sharing truth, right? Being truthful is, well, this is what I believe, and I'm telling you wholeheartedly, I'm sharing honestly. The last thing I would want to do is give you wrong information, but the information that I got from somewhere else wasn't parsed correctly, and so I did bad sense making, or I just proxied my sense making to some other authority that I trust who did bad sense making or has an agenda. And so this is where the layers of complexity can come in. And so you have to understand that someone being, oftentimes, just to share your example, the celebrity class or whatever, they probably are being truthful with what they believe, but what they believe oftentimes is either misinformed or misguided, or perhaps there's an agenda behind it. And so it's just, there's a difference there between those two topics. And I think that's where we can get into some responsible, conspiracy theorizing, if you will. But I think that this is an amazing topic, and, we could probably, spend the whole day on it, but I'm really glad that we were able to kind of parse this out. I'm trying to think what else came up for me. One of the things that came up was this idea of just being an individual, right? And making sure that you're able to actually come up with your own perspective that's unique. Just to share with you guys, it's interesting. Obviously tech and algorithms and all these different things. Facebook thinks I'm a liberal, and Instagram thinks I'm a conservative, which is really cool for me because I can see how they're looking to try to influence me in different ways, and I'm very much in the middle and always have been. And so it's very interesting that, but they think they're always trying to drive the extremes, right? Because that gets engagement. So it's very fun to watch. And if you're able to be an individual and say, hey, this is where I think these people are making sense. Here's where I think these people are making sense. Honestly, isn't that what our country needs more than anything else, is some sort of unity? And obviously there's people who are not incentivized for unity, but we the people really are. So it's just obviously an interesting topic that is very prescient these days. But any closing thoughts on this topic, and then we can move to something else?
What you just said is it resonates with me because what happens is most people, I can't speak for everyone, but most people tend to believe what they were raised to believe. So it's there's an old story that I would share often where it's about the ends of the ham getting cut off, and I'll give so it's this guy asks his wife, he says, "Hey babe, why do you cut the ends of the ham off before you cook it?" She says, "Well, that's the way my mother always did it." He said, "Yeah, but why?" She said, "I don't know. Ask her." So he calls her and says, "Hey, Mom, why do you cut off the hams before you cook it? Your daughter said she learned it from you. Does it make it taste better?" She says, "I don't think so." He says, "Then why do you do it?" She says, "Well, that's the way my mother always did it." She says, "I got to get to the bottom of this." So he goes and visits grandma, his mother-in-law's mom. He says, "Grams, your daughter and your granddaughter both cut the ends of the ham off before they cook it. They said they learned it from you. What's the benefit? Does it make it taste better?" She says, "No, I just had a small pan."
Nice.
So oftentimes these kids that are raised, they're just raised to believe what they've seen. So if this is all they've been exposed to, is this is what my parents thought, this is what my grandparents thought, that's what I'm supposed to think. We're negating the opportunity to think independently, to your point. And I believe that where you said we the people, we ought to think independently. And that might be the exact way that we what our parents believe should be what we believe too, maybe. But at least get educated and get informed and think for yourself independently, because maybe there's a possibility, just maybe, that there's some left principles that you're like, I kind of align with some of that. And then there's like some right principles. You're like, I kind of align with that too. Then it's like, well, shit, I got to choose. I got to compromise. Which one's more important than the others? And at least you're conscious of which philosophies you are aligned with based upon your own research or your own decision making. And I think that's really important for more now than ever, to say, okay, this is because I'm educated, I can make these decisions. This is what I've learned, not from, again, social media posting a bunch of stuff. It's like, what are the policies? Get educated. What do you believe? Forget about politics. Forget about that for a moment. Just what do you believe on certain topics? And now I'm trying to, kind of dance around. I don't want to, go too political here. Maybe you could kind of support this, Andrew, but they try to say the most important topics that we should think about are the big topics: environment, abortion, these are, COVID. They bring up these big topics that some of us are going to be influenced by, and many of us might not be. What about just a conversation like this? Why are teachers paid the way they're paid? And why are doctors paid the way they're paid? And why is the law enforcement paid the way they're paid? And why are celebrities and actors paid and entertainers paid the way they're made? Why are the salary structured the way they're structured? And if you just did your research and just figuring out your answers to those questions, you might be fascinated by what might come up.
Totally. I love that. Just making it practical, right? Let me ask you a question, because I fear that some people listening may say, okay, what does this have to do with being better than rich? What does this have to do with personal growth? And I'll share my answer. I want to hear yours. But for me, it's about, again, that seeking of the truth. So if you want to live a life that's better than rich, you need to have a model of the world that's mapped to reality. So if you are misinformed, then you're not going to have a map that's reliable, and you're going to constantly, be devastated. After a certain point in your life, certainly, when you're younger, this happens more often, but as you get older and as you mature and as your model of the world is more sophisticated, you really shouldn't be getting devastated and wiped out and going bankrupt and trying to get rich overnight and lose, $50,000 in the stock market. Like, you shouldn't be doing silly things like this, and you shouldn't have to experience catastrophe the way you did in your teens and your early 20s. And the reason for that is because you have a sufficiently sophisticated model of the world. So, when we're talking about being better than rich, part of it is being, realistic. It's good to have vision. It's good to have a purpose that is really profound and huge and massive. And certainly Mike and I are two of the biggest proponents of that. And we love to think big, and we also love to think practically. We also love to make it pragmatic. What are you going to do today about it? Our motto is leave today better than you found it. Well, if your head's always in the clouds and you're always thinking about some amazing vision in the future, but you're not mapped to reality, it's not going to work out. All of us know certain people, and I talk to people all the time who jump on coaching calls who just live in fantasy land. And they always think that next month is going to be their big month. They always think that next year is going to be their next year. They're basically like a pathetic gambler who always thinks like the next bet I make is the one I'm going to make my million on or whatever. And, that's how they operate their business. It's not a practical way to go through life. And so, when we're thinking about being informed, obviously we're talking about politics and these sorts of things because it's very relevant right now. But it also is really practical when it comes to how to actually be happy and how to be fulfilled. So what's your take, Mike? What does being informed and educating yourself have to do with being better than rich?
When I get educated and I'm informed, I can make decisions that are aligned with that information. So, for example, I can't speak to everything that's happening in the world, but I could speak to what's happening in my lens of the world. So if I'm going down the street and then I'm driving down the street and I see a homeless person asking for food on the side of the street, I see that as real. That is in front of me. It's real. There's a person there asking for food or asking for money. So therefore, I can physically and visually see the problem in front of me and if that's a problem that I align with, that I would like to solve, then I can try to do something about it. So what do? I'll usually give that person, I usually will have a snack in my car that that was my nickname in high school, was Snacks. So I always had snacks with me, love snacks, and I'll usually have something. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, if I have a snack in my car, 9 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10, I'm going to roll down my window and I'm going to say, hey, are you hungry? And 9 out of 10 times, when I ask that question, they're going to say yes. And then I give them food. What's the point? The point is, I can't change the world, but that one person now has more food now than he did before my interaction. I've done that my whole life because that's what I saw my dad do. I saw my dad, my mom, very charity-oriented people. So people ask me, where did PB&J for Tampa Bay come from? It's like, we just wanted to make some sort of change. We do whatever we can. Because I was informed there's a big homeless population. It's like, let's do our part. What's our part? What can I do? I can't change every single person's view of what they're supposed to do. I got informed. What is in my control? What is in my sphere of influence? What can I do? I could gather up some friends. We could make some sandwiches and distribute them out to the homeless. Cool. 82,000 sandwiches later, hundreds of volunteers later, we were able to do something about it. What were we able to do? I don't know. A little awareness, help some people feel good, make sure they feel seen, they got a meal, and we're doing our part. But the I shouldn't say trolls, but I'm gonna, for lack of a better term, but the people that are trolling on other people's, giving their opinion and not doing shit about it, they're not better than rich. They're trying to bring down those people that are trying to create positive change in the world that they live. And that's why I believe that has to do with better than rich, because this has nothing to do with how much money someone has. This has to do with am I living a principle-based life that wants to leave today better than yesterday? And if I can make a positive change in my lens and in my sphere of what's in my reach, then I'm going to do that because I'm educated, because I'm informed, and I'm willing. I think that's another thing, is I'm willing. And that's how this kind of ties into the better than rich principles, in my opinion.
That was beautiful, man. I really love that. And it's amazing to watch that journey that you've taken on, and this mantle of responsibility that you've taken on for your community. 82,000 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches fed to the homeless. You're sparking a movement, and I can't wait to see that cross the 100K mark. What's your anticipation on when you're going to cross 100K?
Well, the goal was this year, and then COVID hit.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to do another. We're going to do one before Thanksgiving. A couple of years ago, we had a massive one before Thanksgiving. We made something. It was like 9,000 sandwiches a couple years ago in a Thanksgiving frenzy that we did. It was back when the mannequin challenge was popular. It's on YouTube. We did. It was like hundreds of people came out. And it was amazing. And we did a large mannequin challenge making these PB&Js. It's somewhere on YouTube. It's pretty cool.
Drop it in the comments after the recording's over. We'd love to see it. So that's awesome, man. And I think 82,000 to 100,000, and eventually to 500,000 and 1 million plus. If you want to get involved with PB&J for Tampa Bay and PB&J for USA, make sure you hit up Mike in the comments, and I'm sure that he can direct you on how to actually do that. One of the things that came up as you were talking was focusing on what's in my control. This is a foundational piece of wisdom. I think it was Epictetus, I believe, right, way back in the day. And this is one of his foundational principles. Definitely fact check me on that here in the comments. But I believe it was Epictetus who said that the essence and beginning of wisdom was understanding what's in your control and what's not. And I want to ask you, Mike, how does one hone that skill? How does one actually learn how to focus on what's in their control? Because let's face it, a lot of things aren't in our control. What are your thoughts on that?
I talk about this every single week with my sales team, and the first question is, do I have a problem right now? And if the answer is yes, cool. Then the question number 2 to that is, can I do something about it? If the answer to that is yes, then take action. Make a list. What are all the things that I can do about that problem, and how to create some sort of resolve? If the answer to the question is no, I can't do anything about it, then how can I reach a place of acceptance as fast as humanly possible? Because anything in between that is worry. And worry is not going to create any type of outcome. It's not going to create any type of progress. It's just going to create an emotion that more so stabilizes or debilitates. So I would say, do I have a problem in my life? Yes. Can I do something about it? Well, so do I have a problem in my life? COVID. Can I do something about it? I could wear my mask. I could practice social distancing. I could, get informed, whatever. Do I have a problem in my life? Yeah. I have friends that are judging other friends based upon their political views. Cool. Can I do something about it? About my friends judging other friends about their political views? Not really. What am I gonna do about my friends judging other friends? So I'm going to reach a place of acceptance. I'm going to say that friend that's just how they are. And when they're ready to change, and when they're ready to be open-minded, and they're ready to not be as judgmental, that'll be up to them. That's not my responsibility. I'm going to stay over here. Not my responsibility. So therefore, I'm going to reach a place of acceptance and move on. And that's it. What's in my control? What's not in my control? How can I reach a place of acceptance? How can I make a list of activities and actions that I can take right away? Now, maybe those aren't the best examples, they're just relevant examples of what's happening in the world right now. But the more I can answer those, the more I can ask those questions, and answer them and make my list and start taking action or reaching a place of acceptance, the more fulfillment I'm going to feel in my life. So I'm not going to just get influenced by everything around me for more than a few minutes at least. I just that's how I'll choose what actions I'm going to take. Probably losing weight is a good example too. It's like, is that in my control? Well, yeah. Can I do something about it? Yeah, I can. Now there are certain things that I can't do. Like there's certain exercises that create lower back pain for me. So it's like, I can't do those, but what can I do? Okay, I'm going to do that. Let's make a list of all the things I can do. I'll do those versus making excuses of why I can't work out. I just say, well, I could do these activities. Those are in my control.
It's awesome. You guys are watching a master at work here in decision making. Do I have a problem? Yes. Can I do something about it? Yes. Go do something about it. Can I do something about it? No. How can I reach acceptance as quickly as possible? If you can take just one thing away from our conversation today, that would be amazing to take away. And Mike, I believe you have a flow chart that maybe we could also drop in the comments a little bit later when we get a chance. But I think that this concept of, is it in my control? Yes. Awesome. Let me exercise the full extent of my will to do something about this problem. Let me mobilize every single faculty that I have, whether it's my brain power, or it's my network, or it's my capital, or whatever, to solve this problem. Within reason, I'm gonna put forth my energy to solve this problem. Can I do something about it? No. Well, let's not worry about it. Maybe it goes on the back burner and you reevaluate in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months if you can do something about it then. And that's it. And if you do that, you're going to be happy, you're going to be fulfilled, and you're actually going to be making the difference that you say you want to. So Mike, it looks like, has a little bit of a, let's do this. Should be able to share it. You're trying to share the screenshot?
Yeah, I was just seeing if it worked. I don't know if it did.
Oh, cool. I don't know if it showed up. We'll have to test it, but maybe next time we can share it. But yeah, this has been fun, man. I really have enjoyed this conversation. We've covered a lot of ground. I think the last thing I'll just kind of say before we start heading for the exits today is that we talked a lot about being informed. We talked a lot about sort of current events. But the principles to evaluate what's true and what's not really don't change. The principles and faculties of reason that you have need to be sharp as a knife and need to be able to parse through data and information and sift through bias and incentive structures to be able to arrive at a model of the world that's actually going to map to reality. And if you do that and you practice that, and by the way, if you're bad at it right now, that's okay. Just practice. Just be better today than you were yesterday, and you're going to get better and better and better. And eventually your aim, just like if I gave you 100 arrows and said, hey, shoot at the target, your 100th arrow is probably going to be a lot better than your first. And your 10,000th arrow is going to be pretty spot on. The more practice you get in honing your faculties of reason and being able to parse through information, the better. And that's going to lead up to a life that's better than rich, because then you're going to actually be able to make decisions that are based upon reality, not decisions that are based upon ideology, and not decisions that are based upon information that is misguided. The last thing I'll just say is focus on what you can control. That could be the biggest message that you guys take away from today. The reality is that no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what's happening in the political system or whatever, it's not the government's job. It's not your parents' job. It's not society's job to take care of you. It's your job to take care of you. So no matter what, my job is to keep running my business as best as I can. My job is to keep showing up for my clients as best as I can, regardless of who's in office and regardless of what's happening in the world. So I hope this has been fun for you all. And Mike, any closing comments before we part for the day?
No, just live your journey. Leave today better than you found it. Leave today better than yesterday. And make small, tiny decisions that are aligned with your goals. And just these small actions daily are going to really lead you towards the life that you desire.
Awesome. Everyone have a great day on your journey to becoming better than rich. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.